Assalamualaikum and welcome to day one of Alumni Homecoming Festivities 2021. We thought it would be a good idea to get the Lums leadership together and ask them some questions. Maybe you have some questions. We also have some alumni here. They may want to ask some questions, and we're calling this session a fireside chat with Lums leadership, or perhaps better still, fireworks with Lums leadership. We have with us today Mr. Shahid Hussain Saab. Shahid Saab is the Rector of Lums. Shahid Saab, thank you, sir, for joining us and for your time today. We have Dr. Arshad Ahmad, the Vice Chancellor, always available, leading from the front. Dr. Saab, a very warm welcome to you, sir, and thank you for your time. And last but not least, we have Mr. Osman Khalid Waheed Saab. He is the member of the Management Committee of Lums. और मुश्किल सवाल पूछने के लिए and to make sure that this session is impartial, is objective, we have two alumni. We have Ms. Saman Qureshi. Saman is the member of the Lums Karachi alumni group. Saman, welcome and thank you for joining us today. And last but not least, we have Ali Farid Khaja. Ali is the president of Lums UK alumni chapter. So we have people from all over the place. Okay. Ali, would you like to go first? Lums की leadership मौजूद है, वो जवाबते हैं, as it were. So what would you want to ask and who would you want to ask? Go ahead. Ali, you're muted. Can you unmute your mic, please?
Oh, thank you. I was talking to myself. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for giving us time to ask these questions and for arranging this session. The first question that's very dear to my heart is that in Silicon Valley we see that Stanford has this impact that the whole Silicon Valley was created because of the innovation coming out from Stanford University. Now we've seen that Lums is also now doing a few things. We have a national incubation center at Lums. So my first question is to the Vice Chancellor. Do you think that Lums can play a similar role for Pakistan, what Stanford did for the US?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for that great question, Ali. It may be a little ambitious to put the bar as high as Stanford and Silicon Valley. As you know, the entire world has tried to replicate that model, and with different degrees of success. And you can look at neighboring countries. You can look at Russia did that with the Skolkovo and its high-tech park and with the university and so on. And there are many models like that. I think we have to think more indigenously about this great challenge that is being used across the board at several different levels about what role can Lums play in fostering not just a culture of entrepreneurship, but spawning a mindset that successful entrepreneurs have. And so what we've done is to take NIC, which has been doing excellent work in the last few years, thanks to the support from Ignite and also the concerted efforts of industry and many of our partners who are engaged in this, is to define certain areas where we can really have a deep dive and create the kind of ideas that would come to life in the form of startups, in the form of accelerators, and then hopefully a unicorn down the road. So we are talking about areas like fintech, agri-tech, healthcare, financial inclusion, the environment, and big data. So those are areas that we have selected. We have a new chairman. We have an alumni who has deep roots with Lums, Salim Ahmad, who's leading that. We have our dean from the business school, where typically entrepreneurship seems to have its roots, where a lot of faculty are participating in training programs. And we're catalyzing with a whole bunch of companies, projects. Some of them are as big as Samsung and Google and BAT and Puan, and the list goes on. And the idea is to solve the challenges that the entrepreneurship sector would face and play our part. So, there are 5 centers in Pakistan, and we are one of them. In fact, we're also giving a helping hand to the one in Quetta and doing our part. But the idea is to really take it to another level where we have our students integrated in the program, where we have our faculty integrated in the program, where our partnerships with industry that are accelerating at a rapid pace, they start using some of our capacities in research and development to accelerate some of the programs that they have in mind. And so there's this life cycle, and we are, I would say, at the early end of the hockey stick, which we hope will define the way entrepreneurship will become a big part of what some of our centers are doing, and then intersect with those centers. So I'll finish with this thought that NIC is one center, but we have 6 other huge similar centers that are dealing with national issues like water informatics, the power sector, again, focus on big data, and there's a whole learning institute. And so there's an interaction of centers that will spawn entrepreneurship as well. And each of them have linkages with business and industry.
Excellent. I'll take it as a yes. In due course, in the next few decades, Lums may play or will play a role as Stanford did, or Silicon Valley. मुझे एक शेर याद आ गया, Lums is 30 years old, and then, some of these Oxford, Cambridge are hundreds of years old. So we need to give it time. We need to give it time. But I think we're on our way. वो एक शेर है जावेद अख्तर का कि अभी कुछ दिन लगेंगे. पुरानी मंजिलों का शौक तो किसको है बाकी, अब नई है मंजिलें हैं सबके दिल में जिसकी अरमा, बना लेना नई मंजिल ना था मुश्किल, मगर है दिल नए रास्ते बनाने में अभी कुछ दिन लगेंगे. So we need to be patient and need to continue the journey. Thank you for that, Ali. Someone, Shahid Saab is looking very somber and very left out. So ask him a difficult question.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me here. I just wanted to know, Shahid Saab, in an ideal setting, where do you see Lums in 10 years? What is your vision for the institution, going forward? Where would you ideally like to see it in about 10 years' time?
Thank you very much, Aman, and let me welcome all the alumni to this wonderful homecoming event. To your question, you see, the universities mature over time, but these are times where, because of the information, ease of information and flow of information, we don't need to take as long as maybe the Oxfords or the Cambridge did. The challenge is that we continue to develop new programs through which we can add value to our already brilliant students. The students that come into Lums are already academically, scholastically very well accomplished. And so that makes it an even bigger challenge, that we keep continuing to innovate how we run our programs, what programs do we add, because we are committed to impart education and how to get knowledge and how to use it. And that is what we are essentially doing here at Lums. Otherwise, people can, go to the textbooks and they can learn subjects over there. But it is the overall environment, how things are carried out, how we improve the student through the 4 years that we have them with us. This also makes it sort of imperative and a challenge to us that we need to, nationally we are well recognized and well thought of, but we need to develop further and develop linkages in the region, whether it is through student exchange, faculty exchange, or research collaborations in the relevant areas. As Dr. Arshad mentioned just now, the centers that are coming up, they are doing wonderful work, and I'm sure they can, help the region with their study and their analysis, whether it is the Energy Center or the Water Informatics Center or NIC for that matter. So it is to to continue to develop new and challenging programs, continue to attract good faculty, which is the backbone of our current path, and research, for which we have been laying a lot of emphasis in the last few years, and there's wonderful results being shown by the faculty. So I think all these things for our next 10 years are important. Although in our International Advisory Board, when we talked about our long-term goals of the next 5 or 10 years, we were told that no, 5 or 10 years is not long-term. If you're talking long-term, you should be thinking of at least 30 years. So I'm talking about the midterm goals for the next 10 years.
Shahid Sahab, I would have thought that 10 years is a very long time in this day and age, where we don't know what's going to happen in 6 months' time. So 10 years is not long term. That's fascinating. Ali, Usman Saab is here. He's a member of the management committee. So if you want to ask him a question, please go ahead.
No, thank you. The question linked with what Shahid Saab just explained, that Shahid Saab talked about the 10-year plan. I'm really interested to knowing about what is Lums doing to make sure that all those plans and the progress is sustainable. So if you can shed some light on how does the management think about sustainability of both Lums as an institution and all the initiatives which the university is doing.
Thank you, Ali, for that wonderful question. It's an extremely relevant question, particularly for this forum, because alumni are at the heart of any university's sustainability. Our sustainability begins and ends with our graduates and our alumni. So in that sense, we're a very young university, but we're looking very hard at how we can engage better with our wonderful community of alumni. Unfortunately, I'm not privileged enough to be one of them, but I know what a special thing it is to be a Lums graduate. And the role that you can play for your university's growth and sustainability is central. Just as an example, I mean, universities in the US, Harvard, for example, gets a third of its endowment directly from alumni efforts. This doesn't include large building endowments or school endowments that one particular alumni may have given, but just regular operational donations every year. A third come from alumni themselves. Of course, this happens with time. And we've spoken about, how we're talking about universities that are hundreds of years old, and Lums is only just 30 odd years old. But the signs are very positive. We have had this year particularly 2 very special donations from alumni or almost alumni. So for example, Mudassir Sheikha Saab, who was the co-founder of Kareem, spent his starting semester as a freshman at Lums. And that somehow experience that stayed with him. And particularly, I think our NOP program, which as we all know is a very special program that we're all very proud of. Years down the road, even though Mudassir went on to UCLA and then Stanford, didn't stay on at Lums for the 4-year program, he still had a place in his heart for Lums. And as a result, we got an extremely generous donation. Dr. Arshad may correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's $1 million plus that he gave directly for the NOP program. And similarly, Munib, who's another one of our young graduates from Lums, who's now a very successful entrepreneur in the US, building Blockstack, which is another company in the blockchain landscape, has given a very generous grant, a couple of $1 million, that will help grow programs at Lums, particularly around big data, support all the wonderful research that we will talk about during this session that Lums is already doing, that is not only very important in a local context, but is globally relevant. So all of this ends and begins with alumni.
Thank you.
Very important role that the alumni can play and are playing. So more pressure on you, Ali. And someone you go next. If you want to ask anyone a question, VC Saab is here. Ye roz aise mauke nahi milte. So if you want to aim a question at him, fire away.
Absolutely, Bilkul. Shahid, I would love to see more foreign students, at the university in large numbers. So I just wanted to know, is that a priority for Lums, and what are you doing, to kind of achieve those foreign enrollments?
Great question. Thank you so much, Saman. I think if we step back just a bit for your question, the principles that guide us as to why international students are important, even before that, we have to affirm that the whole idea of having diversity within the campus and having accessibility to our programs is paramount. So if we believe in that, then we have to believe in internationalization. I mean, we are living, this is a global village, and we know that what the international students bring to campus would be a huge factorial over and above the diversity that exists. So for you and for other alumni who've experienced study at Lums, we have people here from 160 different cities, towns, villages. They bring 70 languages. They bring customs. They bring a different way of thinking. Or isi se sikhte hain. So now add on top of that, international students. Many of them may in fact be coming from Pakistan, but they're living in the UAE or they're living elsewhere. And so it's just an educational imperative that we are inclusive of bringing in international students. Now that, having said that, the importance of that is easier said than done. So I can tell you some of the things that are already happening that are really good signs that we are moving in the right direction. So, we have some niche programs right now, like learning Urdu intensively. And we have this arrangement between Berkeley and the American Institute of Pakistan to bring in students for intensive learning in Urdu. Now, traditionally in internationalization, what you do is you sign agreements with universities. And my goodness, have we done that well. So we've got over 100 partners from all around the world who are interested in exchange programs. And so if you look at the flow of students, unfortunately, it's going in the other direction. So a lot of our students, for example, we just selected 4 undergraduate students to go to Austria for an exchange 2 semesters. And I mean, even during COVID, we are still doing these kinds of agreements. And that is continuing. There's some German students who've come here, for example. But really, if you are, just walking around the campus, you're not going to see the international presence that we really want. So what we've done is we've created an Office of International Affairs. And in that office, we have a director, we have some staff. And what they are doing is they have been targeting certain regions that we want to focus on right now. And in these, so this happened a couple of years ago, and we started visiting Turkey, we went to Qatar, we went to Kazakhstan, we went to Nepal. And as COVID came, so the loss of, those exchanges became more difficult. But we have an eye on China, we have an eye on Bangladesh, we have an eye on Sri Lanka. And not just because they are our neighbors, but because we have had ties with them in the past. We have had students from there before, but there are some systematic factors that we cannot control that have prevented internationalization to occur at the rate we want to. But inshallah, when we look ahead, the prospects look very good, and we are very excited about this program.
Excellent. I'm just going to second that. I think I met a German or American student at Lums, and she spoke better Urdu than most Pakistanis. And I'm like, what are you doing here? She said, I'm studying at Lums. It was fascinating, fascinating. Ali, a question for Shahid Hussain sir?
So I certainly have questions, but before that, I must say that I'll be very happy if my daughter goes to Lums after completing high school here in London. So there is pressure on the Vice Chancellor that I hope by the time she reaches that stage, it's an easy choice for us because I'm having that debate already with my wife, where I was telling her that I'll be very happy if
that's a debate you're going to lose. Never have a debate with your wife. You lose that. All right.
Yeah, yes, she's also from Lums, so hopefully, I hope that that helps me nudge her towards it. So on the question to Shahid Saab, before that, I must congratulate him for the IPO of his company. I think it has been a very successful IPO, one of the most successful ones in Pakistan. And the question is linked with it, what's the degree of, or what's the effort which Lums is doing to build industry and academic collaboration, both in terms of, the work coming out of Lums helping the industry, but also the curriculum at Lums getting impacted by what's happening in the industry, especially in areas like, biotech and technology and also engineering. Now Lums has a School of Science and Engineering, which wasn't there when I went to Lums. So very keen to know about what's happening with industry and academia collaboration.
Okay, thank you, Ali. But let me first of all put some correction here. The IPO is by my former company and my former colleagues. I'm not associated with that part of the company anymore, but they are doing a wonderful job, and it's a very, very important IPO, and my sincerest congratulations to them. Coming to the academia industry collaborations, I think we all know, we have all seen how important and significant it has been over the many decades in all the developed countries. The industry has been bringing their challenges and ideas to the university, and vice versa. This kind of sort of two-way collaboration did not exist in Pakistan, or I would say almost does not exist. So initially, we have also been a little slow, but it also, I think, needed for us to develop a little bit more. We started very strongly in our industry collaborations in the business school, which was the pioneering school of the university. So I know that a lot of our professors even were on the board of some of the private companies, and they were advising and consulting with the industry on many fronts. But then somehow it slowed down a bit. But now I see that through the engineering school, it has bounced back very strongly. And when I say very strongly, it means really, really strong. The big companies like Nestle and all, they have set up special programs, special research grants, and a lot of the companies that have visited us, and I have been there meeting them. Some of them did not know about the facilities that we had, and they were really, pleasantly surprised to see our laboratories in biology and in chemistry and physics. So a lot of that has started happening over the last few years. Then we are also getting in the news because of the work being done by the Energy Center and the Water Informatics Center, for example. We have been able, through that research in the centers, we have been able to influence national policy on electric vehicles, and that automatically means that the industry comes in connection with our school. There are some new startups coming out of those research and joint ventures coming out of those research, whether it is to do with batteries or with vehicles. And the one that I mentioned with Nestle, it is to do with the biology side of the whole thing. So a lot of such collaborations are beginning to happen. They are not enough, certainly, but they are beginning to happen. We are gaining momentum in that side. Industry is also beginning to realize, that they need the universities, they need the laboratories and the scientists that we have in our schools to solve their problems or to help simplify their problems. The Water Informatics Center is collaborating with even some of the government agencies in all the areas. So it is getting a lot of momentum, and it is increasing. not where it should be, but I'm happy with the trajectory. It is extremely good, and it speaks very highly of our faculty and their research abilities. That is what I would like to just share with all of you.
Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for that, Shahid Saab. Someone, a question for Usman Saab?
Because just leading on from what Shahid Saab just said, there's a lot of research and innovation that's coming out of Lums. So what do you think is the practical impact of that on the larger, broader community as a whole?
Thank you, Saman. That's a great question. And as you know, being an alumnus, Lums was in fact set up as an institution to be a catalyst for change. That's part of Lums's DNA. And if you look at the 3 or 4 big existential challenges that Pakistan faces, we're doing something or the other to address them directly. If you look at the School of Science and Engineering, Shahid Saab just mentioned the Center for Water Informatics and Technology. Pakistan, as you know, is home to the largest contiguous water basin in the world, which is the Indus Water Basin. So what better place to have a world-class lab studying, researching the use of water resources than Pakistan, and what better institution than Lums? So, the Water Informatics Center is directly looking at optimal utilization of cropping patterns, water, fertilization patterns, and they're using a lot of cutting-edge technology to do that, and with the support of companies like Nestle. Similarly, in the biology department, another unfortunate area where Pakistan has a large problem, and it's of a global scale, is drug resistance. So the overuse of antibiotics in this part of the world, South Asia especially, is very actively leading towards a future that is going to be potentially very dark, in the sense that you will have new strains of diseases that will be resistant to every antibiotic known to man. So this is literally a race against time. And a lot of these resistant infections are coming out of Pakistan because of the overuse of antimicrobials. And the School of Science and Engineering and Biology in particular is looking to set up a center for infectious diseases that will start a tissue bank for all these new strains of pneumonia, other diseases, tuberculosis, so that the world can study them. And this again is another example of a problem that is of a local context, but extremely globally relevant. If you look at the School of Education, 1/3 of the world's population of primary school age children who are outside school live in Pakistan. So again, that's the scale of the challenge that the School of Education is researching, using data-driven research to come up with policy suggestions, hopefully give better direction so that all the money that is coming to Pakistan to fix the education problem can be better utilized and can be developed as a model for other parts of the world. And it just doesn't end there. I mean, if you look at our School of Humanities and Social Sciences, we generally don't think of humanities as an area of research because you're in many senses researching the past rather than looking forward into the future. But that's also a very important area of research. And I'm proud to say that our Department of South Asian History, for example, is one of the strongest anywhere in the world, not just in the region, but anywhere in the world. I mean, they're producing books that are being quoted at universities, at some of the best universities, including Stanford. And some of our graduates are now teaching at Stanford. So there's a lot, that Lums is doing that is directly impacting the quality of research in other places as well.
Fantastic. Usman Saab, get those people back in Lums and get them to teach in Lums, not in Stanford now.
Inshallah, they'll teach at Lums.
Dr. Arshad, I also have a question. How are the students of Lums currently involved in governance at Lums? Is there a role that the students can also play somehow?
Dil ki baat kar diya aapne. Thank you very much for that question. I mean, without talking about students, this forum would be incomplete. So thank you for that, Adil. To answer your question in technical terms, the answer is a big yes, I think, compared to other universities in Pakistan. And you may say, well, how? And the answer, part of the answer is in the structures that are existing. So we have a student council, an elected student council for both graduate students and undergraduate students. And then what do these people do? Well, these people, of course, run a whole part of what the Office of Student Affairs does. But more than that, in terms of the academic functioning of the university, a deeper question we've asked is, students are not just important, but they are also essential partners in the academic enterprise. So they're not clients. They're not people who just come and take things, but they're also providing vital input to the decisions that are made. And so when we look at the governance of the university and you look at each school, they have a council. In that council, you have a voice for students. Similarly, when you look at the entire university, we have representatives from across the schools and staff as well. So professoriate and staff, but also students. So students have a voice. In fact, they sit in the steering committee that determines the agenda for the highest body, academic body, which is the University Council. Acha, ye to bade structures. Now, when you come down to the nitty-gritty of things that affect their life, you may think, well, one of the places students really are concerned is what the disciplinary committee does in sanctioning all these rules and regulations and the code of conduct. And, there's so many things that students want to experiment with, and they want to know the boundaries. And what better governance than to have students actively involved in sitting in those disciplinary committees. And by the way, our experience is that students are in fact harsher than faculty members in terms of standards that they want to set. So in all of these areas, students are playing an amazing role. Now, for all the alumni, they may remember, they may have fond memories of all the societies that they were part of. And this is, the student voice has always been very vibrant. And this is one of the things that Lums is known for, is that students are outspoken here. And because they have that space to, think about issues of the day and have their voices heard. So whether they express them through the student societies, some of them are adventurous, some of them are very academic, some of them are very practical. There are over 45 societies that we have within Lums. So as far as their governance is concerned, I think it is it exceeds expectations that anyone would wish as a parent or as someone who wants to know कि वो किताबों के उसके अलावा किस तरह सीख रहे हैं, किस तरह सिखा रहे हैं और किस तरह मिल के काम कर रहे हैं. तो इस तरह का माहौल हमने create किया है to be able to have students thrive, and actually we learn from them as much as they learn from us.
Excellent. Wow. What two-way learning is so important. Shahid Saab, I'm going to indulge a little bit and ask you a question. I'll try to make it a tough one. The esteemed position that you hold was held for many years by, our favorite, our very own Razak Daud Saab. So my question to you would be, the founding fathers, Babar Saab, Razak Saab, many other people, they set up Lums with, a group of a set of values, and they have a legacy. Is there something that Lums is doing so that those values and the legacy is passed on to the young generation? ये लोग जो शायद बाबर साहब से नहीं मिले, रज़ाक साहब को जानते भी नहीं है. Is there a way that we can tell them who these people are and why it is important to uphold those values?
Thank you, Adil. दो तीन बातें आपने की which are both important and emotional. You see, Lums is not just any university for us. और मैं सिर्फ ये बात इसलिए नहीं कर रहा कि हम Lums से connected हैं या ये students जो हैं यहाँ से graduate किए हैं. The term alma mater itself, if you go into the literal meaning, means a kind and nourishing mother. So it is dear to all the students, all of us. And I have now been associated with Lums for almost 26, 27 years. First as a member of the National Management Foundation, then a trustee, then in different committees. And then when Razak Saab had to go responding to the national duty call, I was given the responsibility. Now there is, but मेरा बताने का मकसद ये है कि there is a lot of continuity with Babar Saab, Razak Saab, then myself, Usman Saab, and now other younger people into the trust who have seen, observed not only the elders, but also what is happening on ground. And so, काफी चीजें over the last 30-35 years change हुई हैं from one school and an MBA program. We are now, mashallah, a vibrant 5-school university with more than 4,500 students. And in these 35 years, जैसे आजकल है, पहले कहा जाता था कि हर 25 साल में generation change होती है, but I think now every 5 to 10 years, the generation and the thinking changes. But there are some principles and values which remain constant. And whether it is upholding merit, tolerance, diversity, ethics, integrity, these are things which are constant and very close to the heart of the trustees and its founding fathers. So we have gone to great lengths to make sure that these stay at the forefront of every discussion, every decision that the university takes, whether it is in the admissions of the students, the hiring of the faculty, or the programs, or in whichever sphere that you see. So uske baghair, I don't think that the university would have progressed or would have had the respect of everybody if we had not upheld these core values. So it is as important because we are, entrusted with young, brilliant individuals who join us as freshmen, and they are with us for 4 years, and they have to see and experience these values being upheld. And that is how they learn. And we hope that by the time they graduate, they have learned about all these things. And not only do they know the subject in which they majored, but they are also better human beings, because this is what these values are all about. And when they go back, they graduate, they have this feeling for the university, not only because they had a good time here or they learned the subject very well and got a good job, but as an institution, alma mater, or whichever sort of terms you express it. And one of the things that I would like to take this opportunity while we are on the subject of how close we feel to the university is to continue to look after it in whichever form. Little, big, small, direct, indirect. So I would urge all the dear alumni. We now have a 14,000 plus strong alumni body spread all over the world, doing very well. Some of them now maturing in their careers. They are CEOs in different companies. They are entrepreneurs. They have started their own enterprises and very successful, as Usman Saab gave a couple of examples. So I would appeal to them again and very strongly urge to them to give back to the university and be regular in giving. Small, large, doesn't matter. What matters is that you continue to give and show your love for the institution. Thank you.
Excellent. Saman and Ali, more pressure on you. So, just hold that thought. But I have a question for Usman Saab. Jo bhi Shahid Saab ne kaha, giving back. We have 14,000 strong alumni. What can they do? It's fine when you tell a group of people give back. But Usman Saab, can you quantify that? Ek session mein Babar Saab ne kaha tha, teach people to give back. And then giving back doesn't mean give money only. It means time and expertise and encouragement, all of those things, all of the volunteering, all of those things is also giving back. So Usman Saab, what can the alumni do? What would you urge them to do? What role would you want them to play?
Adil, thank you so much for that great question. And, I think Shai Saab just verbalized it, and I would like to just echo what he said, that for all of us who are associated with Lums, and we're fortunate that we're associated, for over a period of years, it's the singular most important privilege of our lives to be associated with this institution. It's a very, very personal involvement. It brings joy to us every single day. And as alumni of this university, the joy that you are feeling on a daily basis, make sure that that remains alive in your hearts. Stay connected with your institution. Adil, what you mentioned is exactly right. It doesn't have to be just financial resources that alumni can continue to provide Lums. That's a very important component. It's not the only one. But volunteering your time for Lums. Every graduate is an ambassador for the university. What you do in life represents, the success or otherwise of Lums as an institution. Now that we're 30 years old or a little bit more, it's time for us as an institution, and by us, I mean the leadership at the university, the board of trustees, to internally reflect. And we're doing that with the support of our advisory board. And one of the key areas that we're looking at this year is how to better engage with alumni. And engagement means more alumni representation at every level in the university, including the board of trustees. We're fortunate we have two outstanding alumni who are already on the BOT representing Lums, Fatma Asad Saeed and Furqan, who leads Pepsi in Pakistan. We would love to see that number grow, because the kind of ownership and engagement alumni bring, we can only hope to mimic or emulate. But of course, the graduates of Lums are the real thing. So as we go forward, I would love for us to also receive suggestions from alumni by emailing, the alumni office, by emailing Nuzhat at the advancement office, suggestions of how we can do a better job in engaging with our alumni, because that's something we're very actively looking in a very concrete way to do better this year.
Get involved. That's the message. Get involved in whatever capacity you can. Okay, we have time for one more question. Ali, would you like to choose a person and a question? We can sneak in one more question. Go ahead.
Thank you. I certainly will. And, firstly, I'll acknowledge, as you said, that there is a lot of pressure now. Munib, who you mentioned, who has given Lums a donation of 5 million stacks, which at that time, I think was $2 million. I think now it's $10 million as a dear friend and my class fellow. So certainly there's peer pressure. And I must thank the trustees, the two who are here and the others who are not here, for all their work and for creating such an institution as an Lums. At least, I'm sure for me, and certainly I'm sure all the others was a life-changing experience. And I think I work in financial services in London for the last 17 years. I went to Oxford. I was a Rhodes Scholar, and I think Lums, a lot of that was only possible because of Lums. So certainly there is a desire and almost like a responsibility to give back for everything which we got from Lums. My question is, and the Vice Chancellor mentioned that there are students from I think 100 plus cities all over Pakistan who come to Lums, and there's a big body of NOP students as well. So there are people who come from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, languages, they speak different languages. What does Lums do to help them integrate and live in the society which is there in the campus? Because it might be difficult for people for different backgrounds, different cities to come and live together.
Is that a question for me, Ali?
It is for you. It is for you. So, in terms of orientation, what do you do to help these guys who, never lived abroad? When I came to Lums, I had a very limited exposure in my city, in Islamabad. So I'm sure, and it was daunting for me. So I'm sure it must be difficult for children who come at the age of 19 to a place like Lums.
Absolutely. Behtareen sawal hai, because at many levels, I mean, this happens all over the world, right? When a young person leaves their home, their family, their nest egg, and they are going to live on their own for the first time, it's a big transition for young people anywhere in the world. And especially so in the case where you have this very inclusive, deliberate, intentional policy, the borders of the campus. Now, इनका orient, देखें, first of all, NOP is usually singled out as the ones who come from the remotest areas. They come from the most disadvantaged society, parts of society, some of them with family incomes of 5-6 people living with 30, 40,000 rupees a month. I mean, so we're really talking about people who are in a situation that is of no fault of their own, where they have these, visible constraints. But the orientation begins way before they get admitted here. So something like 13,000 NOP students apply, and only 400 or 500 will get in, right? At the end of the day. And so when that happens, with the awareness of a lot of people just don't know what is this Lums and what is a university experience, they come way in advance to prepare to be able to compete at the same level with those who did have a chance to be able to prepare for the SATs or for the entrance exams. So a lot of that is done initially. So there's an orientation way before they ever join Lums. All of those people who are shortlisted potentials do come to campus, spend weeks here, and get an opportunity to mingle and sort of look around and see what's going on here. तो वो लोगों से भी मिलते हैं, पढ़ना लिखने का भी होता है. It's a sort of a boot camp, but also it is a way of raising the kinds of questions that young people have when they move into a strange environment. Beyond that, I think we have to also remember it's not just the NOP. It's 1 out of 3 students at Lums, literally, who get significant financial support. And I'm talking about, if you're over 100%, you're NOP, meaning everything is paid for: your tuition, your books, your housing, your stipend for living, etc., transportation, everything. But what about those who need 99% help? What about those who are in the 80%? They too are getting support here. So 1 out of 3 are getting financial support. And the orientation, whether you need financial support or not, is extremely important in the first year, especially in the first semester. That's where a lot of people tend to drop out because of the inordinate deadlines, pressures, and standards that you have to adapt to. And that is where I think what jo Shahid Saab keh rahe the really resonates about the kinds of qualities that are going to get you through the humps, the challenges. And they come from, friendships, as you had, I'm sure, in your cohort. People lent you a hand, people stood by you when perhaps you didn't do so well or when you were struggling. So that kind of camaraderie, that kind of integrity, where I think there was a time initially where there were no monitors when exams were given. This was when the school was really, really small. So this is an ethos, this is beyond the kind of transactional relationship that a lot of students have with their universities. Jahan par, a university that I went to, first of all, in Canada, had 70,000 students. And that's a lot of students, right? And it was not an unknown university, and quite the norm of large universities that you see today. But this is what's different about Lums, that it is really a family, where sort of a larger family now, but that ethos he talked about, the values he was talking about, they come through our faculty members, our staff members. And just if you live here as I do, you walk around, there is a certain, a bar where respect means something. And those who fall out of line, others are there to create those checks and balances that create strong communities. So I think there are communities within communities that provide that scaffold for young people to integrate slowly. Some of them find it much harder than others, but I think it's a lot about the residential program we have here. Half of the students live here. Half of the faculty lives here, more than half of the faculty lives here. So there is that kind of community where people are there for each other. And a lot of the learning, I think, is going way beyond, as was mentioned, the books and the major and the specialization and the skills. It's really about being human and living in a world where those values will be tested far more than any knowledge you have. So it's a more of an ability of learning how to learn rather than something you took आपने पैसे दिए और ये उनसे मिला. It's not a transactional relationship here at all. And I think everyone gets infected who comes here at Lums and I mean in a very positive way, including myself. So I don't say this too often, with family in Canada, I'm really having a good time here. I can say that because I do have another family here at Lums, as I'm sure most of the students do, as I'm sure most of the faculty do.
Adil, can I just chip in on the subject?
Please do that, sir. Please do that. Please do that.
Okay. I think Dr. Arshad very rightly pointed out how the orientation starts much before they join. But it continues through the freshman year, through informal sort of things that Dr. Arshad pointed out, which are hugely important. But over the last couple of years, the university and its administration has been paying much greater sort of focus on helping students who need, whether it is advisement or they need help or remedial support in communications or mathematics or things like that. So there are programs. And for now almost a year, we have had Bilal Malik, who is an alum of Lums and was at Harvard. He's come back here as to lead the advisement area for the university. So that speaks about the seriousness with which the university looks at these challenges and what they are doing. So we are going to great lengths. Bilal Malik was doing wonderfully well at Harvard. He was dean of one of their housing schools, and so we met him in Boston. वहाँ तक जाके उनको encourage किया, Usman Saab, myself, even the Vice Chancellor, or he came back, for which we are extremely happy. But this was a wonderful question, and I thought I will just add this bit of information in addition to what Dr. Arshad mentioned, so that everybody gets to know what all is being done to support, whether they are from NOP or otherwise. All students are equally dear to us, and we need to support them all the way.
I'm going to do a bit of indulgence. I had the good fortune of making 2 documentaries on NOP many, many years ago. I was entrusted with making 2 documentaries, and I met dozens of them. तो अली मुझे सिर्फ एक तो नहीं, खैर बहुत सी याद है. एक किस्सा मैं सुनाऊं आपको. एक लड़की थी, गोरी चिट्टी सी, वो गालिबन गिलगित से दूर किसी गांव की थी. And I was interviewing these young people who had just come to Lums and they were just starting out. 18, 20, 22 साल उसकी उम्र होगी. मैंने उससे पूछा, खानदान में कितने लोग पढ़े हैं आप? कहने लगी मैं पहली लड़की जो पढ़ रही है. मैंने कहा आप गिलगित से इतना दूर आपका गांव है और आपने वहां पे टॉप किया, फिर आप लाहौर आ गई और लम्स में आ गई. Look at what she said. I think about this 10 years later and give me goosebumps even now. She said, मैं एक ऐसा काम करना चाहती थी कि मैं वापस जाकर बताऊं कि वो काम जो है वो मेरे गांव की औरतें तो क्या, मेरे गांव के मर्द की भी वो हिम्मत ना पड़े करने की. This is an 18-year-old girl in Lums. Imagine 10 years from now, look at the role model. Look at the role model of this one person, and there are dozens and dozens of them out there. मुझे याद है बाबर साहब ने एक बात की थी किसी मीटिंग में, and he said कि Lums is not only for people from Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad. And he said, look at the sentence. He said, हमारे पूरे मुल्क में हीरे बिखरे हुए हैं, हमने वो हीरे इकट्ठे करके Lums लाने हैं. And he meant, young kids, not just NOP students, like rightly said by Dr. Arshad, but students who are worthy and intelligent and hardworking, who just don't have the finances, no fault of their own. So anyway. बात नहीं और निकल गई. Ali Fareed, Saman, thank you so much for joining us and for those questions. Shahid Saab, Usman Saab, Dr. Arshad, thank you for your time and your views and your information and the insight. And stay safe and stay indoors and stay healthy. Everyone who's watching, God bless you. Thank you, Usman. God bless you. God bless you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.